Namaskar to all of you and welcome to our next session on the Yogic Live. I'm going to say something very important today. We have a lot of people who are listening to our recordings, but not many people actually show up in the class, right? So I'm actually talking to those people who are not present over here. So I want to actually start this class by reading one shloka. प्रारभ्यते न खलु विघ्नभयेन नीचैः प्रारभ्य विघ्नविहिता विरमन्ति मद्याः विघ्नैः पुनः पुनरपि प्रतिहन्यमानाः प्रारभ्य च उत्तमजनाः न परित्यजन्ति. So this is actually a very, very popular subhashitam. So what does this subhashitam says? See, the subhashitam, there are actually three categories of people. There are three categories of people. The bottom level, the lowest level, the lowest category, and then the middle category, and then the first category, first grade person, right? First grade person, second grade person, and third grade person. So a third grade person is a person, when there is a task that needs to be completed, he knows that there is a task to be completed. So what he will do is that he is very afraid to even start the task, right? As soon as the task is presented, he thinks about all the obstacles that will be there in the task. So because of all those obstacles, he doesn't even want to start the task. Such a kind of person is a third grade person, right? And then the second grade person, that is a madhyamaha. The third grade person is the nichaha. Nichaha is who doesn't want to start the task because he's afraid of probable obstacles, right? He thinks that, essentially a third grade person, he thinks that, this is a gigantic task. I'm a very, very simple man, and how can I actually complete this task, right? Such kind of people are called as nicha. They're called as the third grade people. Prarabhyate na kalu vignabhayena nichaihi. So this nichaihi means the third grade person. He doesn't start the work because of probable obstacles. They do not want to start the work. So that is the third grade person who are called as nicha. Then the second grade person who are called as the madhyama group. Prarabhya vigna vihita viramanti madhyaha. So what the second grade people, madhyama, is they start the work. And when they see huge obstacles, mountain of obstacles, then they immediately stop the work, right? They think, it won't be possible for me to face these obstacles, therefore they give up the work. Those people are called as the madhyamas, right? The second category of people. And then the top grade person, the first grade person, right? First grade person or the top category is vignaihi muhurapi pratihanyamanaha na parityajanti. Pratihanyamanaha prarabhya uttamajanaha na parityajanti. So the third category, that is essentially the top grade person, the first grade person, not the third category, the first grade person, the first category, what they do is, they are the uttamas. They go on fighting against all sorts of troubles and obstacles, right? And they never detach themselves from their principles. They are called as the uttamas, right? They know there is a task, they start the task, they're not afraid to start the task, they start the task, they see the obstacles, when they see the obstacles, they don't give up, they continue, they fight, and then they ultimately become successful. They just stand for the task, they stand for the principles, and they ultimately win. Winning is actually becoming guaranteed for them because they're fighting, right? Those people are called as uttama. So even in our Yoganishta Jivanam class, we have all kinds of people, right? There are people who just listen to the lectures and they don't want to do anything because they are having all sorts of obstacles, right? They think of all the obstacles. Either my family is not aligned with me, they will have a problem with my new diet, or they might say that either the vegetables are very expensive, fruits are very expensive, or they might have any other excuse. They might have a zillion other excuses, or they may have suspicion saying, I will have indigestion if I eat fruits and vegetables. So like that, they might have a lot of excuses, or they might be thinking about all the probable excuses or probable obstacles, and they do not want to start the task. The task is a good one, a very good one, very very important one. They do not want to start the task because of the obstacles. So those kind of people are those kind of people are very very afraid to even start. So then the second great person is a person who actually starts. They in our yogi classes also, we have people who come and who are enthusiastic, and they start following the yogic diet, but then the moment they have some obstacle, then they immediately give up. They give up that work, right? So such kind of people are called madhyama. And then the third category of people are those people who not only start the task but also keep on fighting against all sorts of obstacles and troubles, and they ultimately become successful. So we have to decide what we want to be. Do we want to be the top grade person or the first grade person, or we want to be the second grade person, or we want to be the third grade person, right? It's not only for the yogic life, but it is also for any aspect of life, or it may be any job for that matter, right? So we have to decide what we want. We want to decide whether we want to be successful in the task that is given to us, or we just want to be a mediocre, or what do we want to be, right? So it is up to us to decide what we want to be, whether we want to be the first grade person or not, right? But what we would actually recommend is, or what we would advise is, that we should always aim to be the first grade person, right? We should not be afraid to start the task. We should have the courage to start the task. Obviously there will be obstacles, but we should be able to fight those obstacles and become victorious. Similarly, like when we start the yogic life, and when we're trying to follow the sattvic ahar, or trying to do asanas, or trying to do sadhana, or whatever it is, whatever aspect of the yogic life we're trying to do, right? Initially we should not have any hesitation, or we should not be afraid. We should not be afraid that there will be obstacles. We should be courageous to start the task. Obviously there will be obstacles. We have to fight those obstacles. The human life is a struggle, right? Nothing in this life we'll get it easily, right? Without no pain there is no gain, right? So we have to struggle, and this is a struggle between the pashu dharma and the human dharma, and we have to take that struggle. We have to accept the challenge, that you have to we have to accept the challenge, that only when we accept the challenges or the obstacles, we will be able to move forward. Without obstacles we cannot move forward. Like for instance, a small baby, right, when it is first learning to take its first steps, right, it's definitely going to fall. If the baby thinks that oh, I'm going to fall and I don't want to try, I just want to keep sitting, right, I want to keep crawling all my life, is that even possible, right? Can we do that? There we are having the courage, right? Even though we are falling, we still take the first few steps. We have the courage to go forward, right? Like that, even in the yogic life, once we start, we should not give up. And also one thing for that is regularity. So when you come to the classes, you should be regular. Unless there is an absolutely a situation, emergency situation, we should always make every effort to attend the classes regularly. Because when you come to the classes, the satsang is very very important. With the satsang, what happens is that your mind gets elevated. So we should not give up. So we should try to be regular as much as possible, because what is our aim? We want to be the first grade person, because when we are the first grade person, then we become closer to Paramapurusha. So Paramapurusha is watching us, right? He's watching every step that we take, and when he sees us that we are willing to take the struggles, then he will give his helping hand and make those struggles easier for us, right? So Paramapurusha is there with everybody, but we need to do some chesta. If we don't do chesta, because as human beings we have this choice whether we want to follow this human dharma or animal dharma. We have this choice. So if we decide to follow the pashu dharma, then Paramapurusha is not going to do anything. He's like, okay, if you want to follow the pashu dharma, then what am I supposed to do? So he will just go along with you. Even then he's there with you, he's holding your hand, but because you have chosen the pashu dharma, he will go along with you. But then if you have chosen the manava dharma, and if you have chosen the path of the infinite bliss, then what happens is that then Paramapurusha is very, very pleased. He's very pleased. He comes and he holds your hand and he helps you cross all those obstacles and troubles, right? So it is up to us to decide whether we want to be the Uttama or whether we want to be Madhyama or whether we want to be Nicha, right? So this is all in our hands. So having said that, I want to actually go back to our pravachan, but what I want to remind is that this is a very, very important Subhashitam, and we should always remember this Subhashitam, right? When we start something which is very good, we should not give up. We should never give it up in between, no matter whatever the situation may be, but we should never give up the good task, right? That is the quality of a Uttama. So we should all strive to be Uttama, right? When we strive to be Uttama, then Paramapurusha, he runs to give a helping hand to us, because he understands that this person is taking extra efforts in trying to reach me, right? In trying to, it's not like you're taking extra efforts to do some laukika vyavahara. It's not you're taking extra efforts to do something mundane task, but here you're taking extra efforts in the realm of spirituality, and in that case, then we become very, very priya to Paramapurusha, because we are doing this with love for Paramapurusha. Then Paramapurusha runs and gives us extends a helping hand. No matter what we do, he will always support us and help us to cross those troubles, cross those obstacles in a comparatively smoother manner. So the Uttama person does not stop the work in the middle, right? Because he gets the inspiration from Paramapurusha. Uttama person gets the inspiration from Paramapurusha. Therefore, he never stops the work in between. Whatever he starts, he completes them, right? That is the quality of a Uttama, right? We all have to strive to become a Uttama. So having said that, I want to actually go back to our pravachan. What is the world? So let me actually share my screen. So what we have been talking about, to briefly summarize what we have been talking about, is this pravachan. What is this world, right? So we understood what our dharma is, what human dharma is. The human dharma is to attain Paramapurusha, right? And we said this Paramapurusha is Anadi Ananta Satta. This Paramapurusha does not have a beginning, or it does not have an end, right? So we also know that every human being has a Jivatma, has a unit consciousness. So we ask the question, did Paramapurusha, which we call as Brahma, the Brahma is the collection of, it is basically the Prakriti and Purusha together we call as Brahma. So we ask this question, whether Brahma came first or Atma came first, right? So Brahma has this Paramapurusha in it, Paramapurusha and Prakriti. Paramapurusha, who is the multiple of all the unit consciousness, both in actually in the human beings and also in all beings, the Jivatma, and also the Atma, which is in the seed form, in the potential form, the unit consciousness in the potential form, that is, which will get manifested in the future, right? So Brahma is a collection of all these unit consciousness, right? Consciousnesses. So the question is, did Brahma come first or these Jivatma, they came first, right? So we actually started talking about that. We said that the just like Brahma, the Jivatma is also not having an Adi or Ant. It is not having a beginning or end. But when we look at the human beings, we have a beginning. We are not without a beginning. We have a beginning, and our origin depends on the earth, right? When I actually talked about how the Srishti happens. First, Akasha comes from Paramapurusha. Akasha comes from Akasha. Then comes Vayu. From Vayu comes Agni. From Agni comes water, and from water comes the Prithvi or the Kshiti Tattva. From Kshiti Tattva, from the earth, slowly the single-celled organisms come, and then plants come, then animals come, and then finally human beings come. So human beings, they are not the first beings in this universe. They have a cause, right? So they essentially came from the earth has consciousness, so the human beings got their consciousness from earth. How did the earth get the consciousness? It goes back to each of the factors. Earth got it from the previous factor, from the jala tattva. Jala tattva got it from the agni tattva. Agni tattva got it from the vayu tattva. Vayu tattva got it from the akasha tattva. So akasha tattva is also is crude. We cannot, even though we cannot see the akasha tattva is considered as crude because the sound can travel through akasha, sound can travel through space. Therefore we call akasha tattva also crude. So then we also saw that this Brahma, this unit consciousness actually originated. It is not different from Brahma. It is not different from Brahma. Brahma is always there, and this unit consciousness is also there. But in the Shristi Chakra, they get divided at particular point in time, and they get attached to each of the beings, right? So how this entire creation, who is the cause of this creation? Brahma is the cause of this creation. So we have the Nirguna Brahma and Saguna Brahma. In the Nirguna Brahma, also Prakriti and Purusha is there. Also Prakriti and Purusha is there. In Nirguna Brahma, Prakriti and Purusha, they are both there, but Prakriti is not able to influence Purusha. Prakriti is active, her gunas are also active, but because Purusha is not giving the permission to Prakriti, Prakriti is not able to influence Purusha. But in Saguna Brahma is also the same Brahma. It is a different state of the same Brahma. In Saguna Brahma, Purusha gives permission to Prakriti, and therefore Prakriti is able to influence the Purusha, and Purusha creates this world which is in front of us. So how does he create this world? He creates this world out of himself. So everything that is there in this universe is nothing but Paramapurusha, right? So Brahma is the cause of this creation, and essentially the Purusha is the ingredient out of which this whole universe is created, and Prakriti is the power or the force which gives shape to the Purusha, right? So Purusha manifests himself into these different forms and shapes. So we've been saying that Purusha is a subtle entity. Purusha, we cannot see Purusha. He doesn't have any tanmatras. He doesn't have the Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha tanmatras. Only something which has these tanmatras that we can actually perceive, right? So Paramapurusha is very, very subtle. So how? But this universe is very, very crude. So the question is, if Paramapurusha is the cause of this universe, is the karanam for this universe, then the seed of this crudeness must have existed in Paramapurusha. Then how are we saying Paramapurusha is subtle? Then Paramapurusha cannot be subtle. Right? If the seed of this crude universe existed in him, then how can we say Paramapurusha is subtle? Like for instance, in milk, there is butter in milk, right? Butter is very, very crude. Milk is also crude. So if butter, I can see butter, and that crude entity is present in milk, and when I churn it, I get the butter. So that seed of crudeness is there in milk, and I get and as a result I have this butter, which is also a crude entity, right? But in the case of the Srishti is this Jagat, this universe is a crude entity. I can see it, I can perceive it, but Paramapurusha is so subtle. Then how can the seed of this universe exist in Paramapurusha, right? So we said that we said that this we said there is actually a contradiction. There is actually a contradiction. If we say Paramapurusha is subtle, then how can the seed of this crude universe exist in Paramapurusha? So we said that this ultimately the logical thing to say is that this universe was never created, is never a created reality. It is when it is actually logical to say that when Prakriti influences Purusha, a mental wave arises in the mind of Paramapurusha, and as a result of which this creation comes into being, and the creation comes with different forms and shapes. So that is how this universe is created in the mind of Paramapurusha. So it is not an entity which is outside Paramapurusha, but it is an imaginary entity in the mind of Paramapurusha. So for creating this universe, there is no need for any crude stuff, right? Like a potter needs clay to make pot, like that Paramapurusha doesn't need any external ingredient to make this external crude ingredient to make this universe, right? So how did he make this universe? He made this universe in his created as an imagination in his mind. So therefore, even though Purusha is subtle, he could create this crude universe because it is just an imagination, it's a projection in the mind of Paramapurusha. So we said that. So then we have to understand. So okay, you're saying that this universe is an imagination in the mind of Paramapurusha, but to me it appears real, right? To all the beings, it appears real. This whole universe appears real. Then we need to understand how this imagination works, right? So when we are imagining, when we are having an imagination, as long as that imagination is going in our mind, we feel it is real. Like for instance, we saw this example as if you are in Prayag and if you are thinking of Chandni Chowk in Delhi, then what happens is that you are actually in Prayag and you forget that you're in Prayag and you're imagining Chandni Chowk. As long as you're imagining Chandni Chowk in Delhi, you feel that is real. It is an imagination, but you feel it is real. But when the spell of imagination is broken, then we realize, oh, I am in actually Prayag, not in Chandni Chowk, right? So like that, this imagination is going on in the mind of Paramapurusha. So that is why everything looks real to us, right? So so we actually said that how human beings get knowledge of something, right? When we have an object outside, let's say there is a book outside, then we have our eyes, our chakshurindriyam. So what happens is that our chakshurindriyam, the indriyas, the eyes, they get connected with the external object. The tanmatras from the external object are received by the eyes, right? The tanmatras, basically a wave, a microscopic fraction of a wave, and that wave is captured by the eye, and from there the tanmatras go to the chitta, which is a component of the mind, and then chitta is like the movie screen of the mind. The chitta takes the shape of the book. The chitta does this at the behest of the aham tattva. So when the chitta takes the book which is outside, then the aham tattva is seeing the book. Aham tattva is another component of the mind, and aham tattva is seeing the book. That is how the perception happens. That is how I actually see things, or I hear things, or I feel things, or I taste things, right? All those different senses. This is how this process works. So first the tanmatras is captured by the indriya and it is transmitted to chitta, and chitta takes the shape of that particular thing. It becomes like the book, or it becomes like the sound, or it becomes like the taste, or it becomes like the touch, right? It just becomes like whatever that particular or this one object, external object is, right? So when the chitta takes the shape of that, and that is how the aham tattva either sees or hears the sound, or it feels the touch, right? So that is how the perception happens. So most often the indriyas, the 10 indriyas are working hand in hand, right, with the mind, and the perception happens. But what happens is, in the case of imagination, what happens, the in the case of imagination, the indriyas are not working. So what happens is that the chitta is not in touch with the indriyas, so the mind is independently working. The mind had perceived a particular thing, or it had already had a prior knowledge of a particular thing. So let's say that the mind that this person Ram, he had already seen Chandni Chowk previously, because he had already seen Chandni Chowk previously. So now, like, let's say he saw Chandni Chowk like few months back, and now he's all of a sudden imagining Chandni Chowk, because when he's imagining Chandni Chowk, he does not need the indriyas. So the chitta is not in contact with the indriyas. It loses its contact with the indriyas because he's currently in Prayag. It loses its contact with the indriyas, and now chitta is actually imagining Chandni Chowk based on the prior knowledge. When chitta is imagining Chandni Chowk, it appears real, and the aham tattva sees Chandani Chowk. It experiences Chandani Chowk. This is how the imagination happens, right? This is the process of imagination. So chitta can take the shape of the object without the help of the tanmatras at the instance of aham tattva, and this is the imagination. So even though the object in the objects in the imagination is not real, but the imagination itself, it is a fact that the chitta is taking the imagination, right? Even though Chandani Chowk may not be, actually it is not real, right? Because he is not in Chandani Chowk, he is imagining he is in Chandani Chowk, right? The Chandani Chowk thing maybe Chandani Chowk is unreal, but it is a fact that he is imagining. The imagination is happening in his chitta is a fact, but the things that are being imagined in the imagination, they are not real. So that is actually the difference between when a perception happens using the indriyas and when perception happens without using the indriyas. That is exactly the difference. When perception happens using the indriyas, the external object is actually a real object, whereas when the perception or when an imagination is happening, the kalpana is happening, at that time what happens is that the indriyas are not in touch with are not in contact with the chitta. Therefore, even though the imagination is happening in the chitta, that is real, but the objects of imagination, they are all unreal, right? So we actually covered till that part in the last class. So okay, okay. So Hamsini Bagni, do you want to read or you have to leave? Can you read?
I have to leave right now.
Oh, you have to leave right now? Okay.
Yeah.
So,
Dhanyavada.
okay. Okay, no worries. So, Suchitra Bagni, do you want to read?
Which portion, Bhagini?
This universe should not appear to be a reality.
Okay. The universe should not appear to be a reality if it exists only in the imagination of Sagun Brahma. Earlier we saw that the imagination of unit consciousness appears to be factual as long as the spell of the imagination lasts. The imagination of Saguna, which is only a multiple of all unit consciousnesses, also appears to be real for the same reason. It is this that makes the cosmic mind also consider its imagination to be reality. Unit mind, or an individual's mind, is only a part of the cosmic mind, and whatever appears true to the cosmic mind will also appear true to the individual mind. Thus, although this vast universe exists only in the imagination, it appears to us as reality. The universe, we say, if it is all an imagination, if the universe is an imagination in the chitta of the Sagun Brahma, then it should not appear as real. But as we know, the universe is real because we exist. And so here we saw that also, that earlier how the imagination happens in the chitta, and it lasts as long as the imagination lasts. The things also appears to be real. So how this imagination is the imagination of the Sagun Brahma, which appears to be real. There is some reason for that, and because Sagun Brahma is the kind of it consists of all the unit consciousness, that the jiva chitta. So this makes the cosmic mind's imagination to be real, because it is the, we can say, conglomeration of all this unit consciousness, all the minds of the unit consciousness together is the Sagun Brahma chitta. In the then it comes over the unit mind or the individual's mind. The unit mind is only a part of the cosmic mind, and so whatever appears, whatever is happening in the chitta of the cosmic mind, that appears true to the individual mind because it is a part of the cosmic mind. So as long as the imagination that is running in the cosmic mind, that appears real to the individual mind also. I'm not sure if I did justice with this explanation. I could only explain this much.
No, but nicely said, very nicely said. I was actually thinking how best to explain this paragraph. So what I was thinking is that, for instance, each of us, we can think that we are Paramapurusha, right? And we can think this whole Shristi is happening in our mind, right? Just for the sake of this one, imagine this Shristi is happening in your mind. This whole world, everything is in your mind. And let's say in this world, we have all the beings, we have animals and plants. And then let's say there are 3 individuals in my Srishti, right? I'm Paramapurusha, and in my mind, the imagination is happening. And there are 3 individuals, Ram, Shyam, and Geeta, right? There are 3 individuals in my imagination. And then Ram is there, Shyam is there, and Geeta is there, right? Ram is able to see Shyam and Geeta, and Ram is able to see Ram and Geeta is also able to do the same thing, right? So in my imagination, let's say this Ram, Shyam and Geeta, they are all interacting with each other, right? So when they are interacting with each other, each of them are feeling that they are real, right? Everything that they are seeing, they are feeling they are real, because that is how I want my imagination to be, right? In my imagination, each of those entities are all alive and they're interacting with each other, and each of them, they're feeling everything is real, right? But I know I am Paramapurusha. I know that everything is happening is actually an imagination in my mind. I know that. But those entities which are there in my imagination, they do not realize that this is actually an imagination. They are actually thinking everything is real and they're interacting with each other. So that is how I kind of try to kind of put this into words. Does that make sense?
Bhagini, so here we say this, apart from this, as I take your mind as the cosmic mind, so this Ram, Shyam, Geeta are only in the imagination of your mind. Is that so?
Yes.
So the imagination that you are doing is real, but this Ram, Shyam, Geeta, who are part of the imagination, they are not real. Is that so?
They are not real. Yes. Yeah, they are not real. Those entities are not real. Ram, Shyam, that individual existence as Ram and Shyam, Paramapurusha, he is not thinking like that. He is thinking, I am Ram, I am Shyam. Each of them, they are thinking their individual existence, but that individual existence is not real. It is actually part of the Paramapurusha's imagination.
Okay. So the imagination is real, but the entities are not real.
Yeah. So just like how when I imagine Chandani Chowk, right? I'm imagining Chandani Chowk, and the Chandani Chowk appears real to me in my imagination. It appears real to me. But then when I suddenly, I wake up, the spell of imagination is broken, then what happens is that the Chandani Chowk is no longer there. Then I realize it's only an imagination, but the imagination actually happened, right? It is true that my chitta was actually imagining these things. So the imagination is true, but the objects of the imagination are unreal.
So now, does that make this, unit consciousness, the unit mind, the individual mind, are we all like into this unreal part when we think from the cosmic mind's perspective?
Yeah, they're all happening in the cosmic mind. From that perspective, they appear unreal. So when we realize that we don't have this individual existence, then what happens? Then everything becomes unreal. As long as we think that we have this individual existence, then yes, we have the mind, we have everything, we can see everything. So then everything appears real. But then once we realize, right, when in the Yoga Nishta Jivana, when we realize that our goal of life is to merge with Paramapurusha, then slowly what happens is that everything, we lose our individual existence. When we lose our individual existence, then what happens? Then mind ultimately merges with Paramapurusha. The mind no longer exists, right? Then at that state, when we attain the Nirguna Purusha, at that state the mind doesn't exist, right? So is the mind real or not real?
The mind is not real.
The mind is not real, but it is a manifested form of the consciousness. It is a manifested form
Yes.
of the consciousness. But when we go backwards, when we keep tracing our steps backwards in the Shristi Chakra, then when we ultimately reach Paramapurusha, then what exists? Nothing exists. Mind doesn't exist. Ram doesn't exist. Sham doesn't exist. Nothing exists. What I see everywhere is only Paramapurusha. What I see everywhere is just Brahma. Right? So,
Okay. Yes.
yeah, so it's very kind of very tricky. It is actually unreal, but it has having limited reality. Right? Because as long as we are living in this world, we cannot say this is unreal. Right? To us, everything appears real because we are part of Paramapurusha's imagination, and everything appears real to us. It feels like I have a mind. If I myself I'm not there, right, then how can I say my mind is real? How can I say your mind is real? Everything is, I can't say, right? But as long as I'm living in this world, everything appears real. Everything appears real. So that is why we have to give limited reality to all of this, right? It's not absolute reality. It is not the Paramarthika Satya, but it is just for Vyavahara. Yes, everything appears. I cannot say the world does not exist because I feel it. I experience every day. I have experiences with different people. I have experiences with every entity in this universe. So I cannot say this world is unreal, right? But it has a limited reality, because when we understand this process, how this imagination is happening in the cosmic mind, then we understand that this is not absolutely real, but it has a limited reality. So that does not mean that, like Advaitavadi, I am going to say that Jagan Mithya and ignore the world, right? I have to live in this world. I have to do seva, and also I have to work towards Atma Moksha, right? I have to do both hand in hand. I have to do seva and also I have to do Atma Moksha together. So when I engage in that pursuit, then what happens is that when I engage in sadhana, then slowly what happens, as we go deep and deep in sadhana, then slowly the chitta gets merged with aham tattva. Now chitta is no longer there, and then aham tattva gets merged into mahat tattva. Now aham tattva is no longer there, and finally when mahat tattva gets merged into Paramapurusha, then mind is not there. So then we can say at that point in time, the mind which appeared very, very real is actually not real, right?
Okay.
Yeah, this is how we can actually try to put these in words, right? This is how we
So
can
our
actually try.
The individual mind's existence is only a relative existence.
Yes.
It appears to be real as long as we are in this. It has not merged with the cosmic mind.
Yeah, as long as we think we have
merged,
separate existence.
Everything assimilates over there.
Yes. As long as we think we have separate existence, Ram, Shyam, Geeta, Govinda existence, then we have separate existence, we have separate mind, we have separate body, we have everything. We live in this world and we do the Pashu Jivanam, right? But then the moment we realize that, the goal of life is not this, but the goal of life is to attain Paramapurusha, and then when we engage in that pursuit, we engage in sadhana, slowly what happens, all the layers, the different layers of the mind, one by one, it goes inward, and that layer is no longer there. Then what happens, finally what remains is only Paramapurusha remains. So everything else is unreal. But when we come out of sadhana, then again everything appears in front of us. So how do we, even when we live in this world, when we're not doing sadhana, how do we live in that Brahma Bhava, right? How do we live in that Brahma Bhava? Then we can live in that Brahma Bhava by doing this Madhu Vidya, by doing this Brahmacharya. When we do this Brahmacharya, we everything in this world is a manifestation of Paramapurusha. Everything is nothing but Brahma. Sarvam Khalvidam Brahma. I'm not doing sadhana, when I'm living in this world, then I have this Brahma Bhava. I superimpose this Brahma Bhava on everything. Then what happens? Even when I'm living in this world, I have this Brahma Bhava. When I have this Brahma Bhava, then I don't have separate existence. Then I also don't have a separate mind at that point in time. In the sense, everything what I do is for Paramapurusha. I don't have an individual existence at that point in time. Those who are doing 100% Brahma Vidya, who are doing Madhu Vidya, engaged in Brahmacharya Bhava, Brahmani Vicharanam. So then even when they are living in the world...
I have.
Yeah.
As you say that imagination is mainly when chitta is imagining, based on the aham tattva's direction, the chitta is imagining something. Is it not so?
Yeah.
And that is true for the individual mind. In the cosmic mind, also they have Mahatattva, Aham Tattva and Chitta. So there, the chitta, because nothing existed, right, in before the cosmic mind. So from where it gets that thought waves for imagination and creates this?
Everything is happening within the Paramapurusha. Doesn't need any external object. Everything he is creating in his own mind. Just like how in our imagination I can create something. In my imagination, I'm imagining a flower in the sky. Can I not imagine like that? I can create in my own imagination. I don't need any external object. I'm just creating something. In your imagination, you can create whatever you want. Even the things that you have never seen in your life, you can create.
Yes. All that I create is based on my previous impression of what a flower looks like. So I create that in the imagination.
Yes.
But is that so in Sagun Brahma also, in the cosmic mind also?
No, because nothing existed beyond Paramapurusha. So whatever he is creating, Paramapurusha himself is creating. Those different shapes and forms, Paramapurusha is creating with the help of Prakriti. So for Paramapurusha, he knows everything. He is Sarvajna, right? He knows everything. He doesn't need some external object. He doesn't have to have seen something before. He knows everything, right? So he is creating in his own mind.
Okay. So the imagination of the individual mind and the cosmic mind are entirely different.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. For us, we should have seen something before.
Yes.
Yeah, to a large extent, we have to have experienced something before. Only those things we imagine. But for Paramapurusha, in his mind, the ingredient for imagination is also himself. He does everything within his mind, without any prior knowledge. So without everything in his own mind, because he has knowledge of everything, right? So we cannot say that he doesn't have prior knowledge, because he knows everything, right? So he knows everything. He can do whatever he wants. He has unlimited power. Sarva Shaktiman. Does that make sense, Bhagin?
Yes, to an extent.
So like how Paramapurusha is exactly imagining that, I don't think we can explain in words.
We can imagine.
We can only imagine how. Just like I told you, like, in your brain, let's say your Paramapurusha, you're imagining. That is how you can do. You're creating all these things, imaginary entities on your own, without any external help or without any external objects. So he's doing all that in his own mind. Because the thing that we have to understand is that Saguna Brahma is Sarva Shaktiman, right? He has all the powers in the world. So he can do whatever he wants. So if you want, like how a magician is doing a trick, right? Like that, we're going to see this magician's trick. Maybe they'll give you some more ideas. We'll go ahead and read that. So in this paragraph, so one thing that I want to clarify is an important point is that nothing existed before or beyond Saguna Brahma, right? So outside of Saguna Brahma, there is nothing happening within. So there is no external object which Paramapurusha saw and then is imagining in his mind. So whatever is happening, that is the periphery. His mind is the periphery, right? But for human beings, when you look at human beings, we have two options. So when we see a book, we see a book by opening our eyes, and we're looking at the book and we're getting the visual information, and the light which is getting reflected off the book is captured by the eyes, and then that information, visual information, is actually passed on via the optic nerve to the brain, and then conveyed to the chitta, and the aham tattva actually sees the book, right? So here the indriyas are working with the mind, with the chitta, and all this is happening, right? But then when we are imagining, what happens is that the chitta is not in contact with the indriyas. The chitta and aham tattva only work, and as you said, we must have seen some entity before, and that's what comes in our imagination, right? So for human beings, we have these two processes of getting knowledge, right? One in the imagination, where indriyas are not used, and other is with the indriyas, where we are having the perception. But for Paramapurusha, there is only one. There is no usage of the indriyas to capture the object from external, because there is no object outside of him. So he is not using the indriyas to get information. The imagination is happening, everything is happening all of our minds being within the cosmic mind, right? So what is the imagination for the cosmic mind takes on different importance for the unit mind, and that is what is the kalpana or imagination for the cosmic mind, right? Because there is no external reality to be calling that as real, the kalpana of the cosmic mind takes on a different status than the kalpana of the imagination of the human being. All the human beings are within that imagination. The unit mind of the human being is also actually part of that cosmic mind, right? The Shama, Rama, Gita, whoever is there in that cosmic, it is also part of the cosmic mind. It's the same the stuff, ectoplasmic stuff, right? So then that becomes that appears real, right? That appears real. So this understanding this concept is very, very important, right? So this is completely different from saying Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya. Completely different thing. We have to understand that its ramification, because we are saying the world has a reality value, right? So so what we are not saying that we have to ignore this world. So we are saying we have to do Atma Moksha and Jagat Hit, right? So that is what this paragraph is talking about. Let's actually go on to the next paragraph. To take the next paragraph again.
Yes, the magician, right?
Yeah. A magician showing his tricks in the street.
Okay. A magician showing his tricks in the street often appears to throw into the air a rope which just remains there. His accomplice climbs up the rope with a sword in his hand and disappears. After a while, the accomplice's head and trunk, smeared with blood, fall down one after another. The entire audience becomes dumbfounded in amazement. The magician weeps and wails for his friend as he gathers the limbs in a bag and collects 4 times the amount he would have normally got because of pity and sympathy that he aroused in his audience. Soon after this, after his accomplice is seen emerging from the audience. So it talks about the...
You can actually take the next paragraph.
The next one?
Yeah.
Okay. How does the magician do this? The entire screen is enacted in the presence of a number of persons, and it is difficult to consider it false. Yes, it is such a strange show that one's mind is not prepared to accept it as true. One is inclined to wonder whether the magician has really brought back to life his friend whose head and limbs had been severed from the trunk. The doubt that one's eyes might have deceived one is brushed aside by the fact that so many others present have seen the same thing. Everyone could not make the same mistake. We must see what makes such an absurd thing appear true. A rope cannot stand in the air, nor can anyone climb that rope. Even less believable is the idea of anyone being brought back to life after their limbs have been shivered from the trunk. How then does one see it so clearly? So it talks about the magician's performance where he throws a rope into the air and it just stays there, and his assistant who climbs up the rope with a sword in his hand, and he just disappears into the air. After a while, we see this accomplice's head and trunk. His body parts are kind of soaked with blood and falls one after another, the body parts, and so it gives the appearance like the magician has been killed, and the entire audience becomes dumbfounded with what has so happened in front of them. And the magician weeps for his friend for his friend's death, and he gathers all his limbs and all body parts in a bag, and everyone is like filled with so much of sympathy and pity for the magician that he lost his accomplice. And soon after, some time after the magical performance, we see the accomplice who seemed to be dead is walking out of the audience. So this all looks like so absurd because we have just seen in front of our eyes what has happened, and now we see someone coming back to life after his limbs have been severed and he was dead. So how does this magician do this? And if it was unreal, if it is my mind which is hallucinating or imagining, then what about the people who are there along with me? Everyone cannot be mistaken, or everyone cannot be having some hallucination. So this is something which, if we think from the reality point of view, we think like how a rope can stand in the air. If we all know that if we throw something into the air, it has to fall back, the gravity. So how this rope has got and stuck into the air, and again someone climbed that rope also, and someone has been whose limbs have been severed from the body, and again someone has coming back to life because we see this person coming out of the audience. So how did this magician do this, and how could we can see all these things in real which appears to be an imagination? So this is all I can explain.
Yeah, nicely said, Bagni. Beautifully said. That is the idea over here. So what is being dramatically described is a phenomenon which anybody who has attended a magic show definitely would have experienced, right? That something amazing, the details of magic may vary, right? But something amazing happened to one's logical thought process. So but yet we have experienced it, and right, a lot of other people also would have experienced the same thing, and everybody is like shocked and amazed. So it seems on one hand something what happened is beyond belief, yet one has seen it with one's own eyes, and not only that, like lots of other people who are there, they also have seen it. So something that is unbelievable has happened. We know we don't want to believe it is true, but then we cannot ignore it either. So the world is like that, right? It appears true, but it appears unreal, but it appears true as well, right? It is actually unreal, but it appears true as well, right? So it's exactly like this magic show. So we need to understand what is actually going on over here, so we can actually move forward to the next paragraph also, Bhagini.
Okay. So everyone sees the show with the help of his indriyas, the eyes. We have seen earlier that the function of seeing any object is performed by Aham Tattva, and it takes the form of the object that Aham Tattva wants to see. If the magician, with the help of his supernatural power obtained by intuitional practice, can expand his mind to such an extent that he is able to hypnotize or influence the Aham Tattva of everyone in the audience, he will stop the independent functioning of the entire audience. The expanded mind of the magician then becomes the collective mind of all the individuals, as their minds do not function independently. It is the magician's mind that works in place of the non-functional minds of the audience. If the magician thinks of the above show, his chitta will take those shapes, and his Aham Tattva will see the same show in his imagination. As long as the spell of his imagination lasts, it appears to be real. The Aham Tattva of the magician works in place of the Aham Tattva of the onlooker. And hence, whatever the magician sees as real or true appears true to them also. Since the thought waves of the magician appear as objective reality. This show, which exists in his imagination, appears to be a physical occurrence. If the capacity of the magician's mind to project is limited to the radius of 100 yards, persons in this area only will come within the scope and influence of the magician's expanded mind and will see the same show. Anyone outside this circle will be beyond the limit to which the magician can expand his mind. They will not see the scenes like those within this area. They will only see the magician standing quietly with his eyes closed. There will be no trace of the wonderful magic. In fact, the only truth or reality in the entire show is the magician stands still with his eyes closed, imagining the show which his audience sees as a concrete picture and imagines to be real. Similarly, those who have fallen from the path of yoga go about showing off their supernatural powers. They create coins, currency notes, or sweets out of dust. In reality, no coins or sweets exist. What exists is only the display of the expanded mind of the straying disciple. Yes, so here it's the magician's mind which is working, and he has kind of suspended the independent activity of his audience mind. So maybe it's kind of a hypnotizing process or something where he has stopped the individual minds from functioning independently. So they have just become onlookers, and their mind, all the activities are performed by the magician's mind now. So the magician, whatever the magician is imagining, it is appearing as true to the onlookers, even though they are seeing something so unreal if they think from their logical mind. But since their functioning of the mind has been suspended for the time being, like how a person appears to be, under the influence of some drugs or anesthesia or something, their mind stops functioning. Things, even though they appear in front of them, they don't see them, or they don't react to that because the logical thinking process has been suspended. So here the magician's chitta is something which is imagining, and everyone's mind, it has stopped and they are just seeing it. So this is how it comes, looks like real. But here the magician has got the control of the mind of the people within that area, the radius of the area. So they only are under the spell of the magician's mind. The people who are outside those radius, they do not see, they are not under the influence of, and they do not see any of those scenes of what we have discussed earlier about throwing the rope on the air and someone climbing the rope and getting killed and then coming back to life and all those things. The others do not see that. The ones who are outside that radius, the individuals whose minds are not been taken over by the magician's mind, whose minds are still functioning independently, they just see that the magician standing quietly with his eyes closed, and they do not see any wonderful magic of what we spoke about in the previous paragraph about the show. So this is something the magician has got a control over the chittas of the other person's mind. And yes, there are people who have gained some of these superpowers of controlling the chitta of others. They kind of misuse this power that they gained from yoga, and they try to collect the name and fame in the form of, like, they go and create this magics and miracles of creating something out of nothing. And but that is only a display of the little bit power what they have gained by practice. and in the end, if we see that they are kind of diverted from their path, and they are kind of into the display of their power. So this is all I can say.
Yes, Varni, nicely said. Yes, thank you. So yeah, you're right. So somebody who engaged in sadhana and expanded his mind, and he got some powers, spiritual powers, and he actually misused those powers. So he strayed from spiritual path. That is what it means. Right? Because as the Kula Kundalini, which is there in the Muladhara chakra, it raises, then that spiritual energy which is there in that Muladhara chakra, in the Sushupta Avastha, it raises, right? So until such time when somebody realizes they have an infinite desire, and if Paramapurusha doesn't become the goal of their life, then what happens with the expanded mind? They get this extra powers, and they start misusing those powers. So so when the Kula Kundalini raises, slowly the Kula Kundalini raises, and then from it goes to the Swadhisthana chakra, then it goes to the Manipura chakra, then goes to the Anahata, and then finally it goes to the Vishuddha chakra, and then to the Ajna chakra, and then finally to the Sahasrara chakra. So it is on the way. It's quite natural that the mind gains access to special powers. The mind is expanding, and it is becoming more and more powerful. So then the mind gets access to all these different kinds of siddhis, right? But a true sadhaka who's a bhakta will never access those siddhis, right? Because for a sadhaka, those siddhis are meaningless, right? Because his goal of life is not to use those siddhis. So for a spiritual sadhaka, these siddhis have no benefit, no use at all, because they have no use towards the realization of the infinite. So but once somebody starts accessing all these siddhis, then what happens is that they were going to have decline from their spiritual path, right? All these the gurus that we have, all the different kinds of gurus who show all these magic tricks using their siddhis, right? It essentially means that they have fallen from their spiritual path, because that means they've become patit. They are fallen sadhakas. They're not true sadhakas. Because a true sadhaka will only have one desire in his mind, that is to realize Paramapurusha, Atma Moksha. So it is if somebody is doing these kinds of magic tricks, right, it essentially means that they have fallen from the spiritual path. They have not understood what the spiritual path is. They've got attracted to these siddhis. So these siddhis are all essentially useless things, have no value for a sadhaka, because when you use the siddhis, what happens is essentially you're glorifying your small I, right? You're glorifying your small I, which is exactly what we're trying to surrender in the spiritual life. So once somebody starts using the siddhis, it means that they're trying to glorify their small I. So then there is no further progress spiritually, because the goal of our life is to exchange the small I for big I, the cosmic I within us, right? Aham Brahma Asmi. That is what we are trying to realize. But people who do not understand the real spiritual path, whose eyes are not really open, that their goal is to become a human being, that they have an infinite desire, then what they do is they spend their lives trying to glorify the small I. So this magician is an example of that, right? He's only trying to glorify his ahankara, that small I, which is a bada, which is a badakam for further progress, which is an obstacle to the path, right? So but this serves as an example for us, like, because to define what is an objective reality, right? When 10 people are looking at a tree, they're all seeing the same tree, because everybody is having the same view, they're all having the same experience. So we define that as an objective reality, right? That is an actual objective reality. But here the magician is creating an artificial objective reality, which he has the power to do within, like, say 100 yards, right? So within 100 yards, whoever is there within that 100 yards, they get this new created reality, because he has this expanded mind. He has the mental ability to control the aham tattva of all those who are within that 100 yards range, right? But he cannot control anybody who is beyond that range, right? So we are having an example over here which is giving an illustration of how we are going to define, how we are going to assess and understand the objective reality, and also what is the status we are going to attribute to that we are calling as objective reality. Because we talked about kalpana last week, right, in great length. What is imagination? What is this cosmic kalpana? So now we are getting up to the point here that how this is actually working. Is this universe just a fake? Is just fake? Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya, Jagan Mithya. Is it what we are trying to say over here? So what is the meaning of this entire world, right? So if this entire world is only a kalpana, because right, Prakriti cannot create something crude, right? She cannot create something crude. She's just a force, right? So if she has to create, she needs Parama Purusha. She gives shape to Parama Purusha. But we said that the seed of this universe Parama Purusha, because Parama Purusha is subtle. So then we also said that this whole Srishti is just an imagination. So no crude ingredient is actually required to make this universe. So this is actually a good example to illustrate that whatever the Aham Tattva sees, if somebody is sleeping, they see a dream, and then that dream, which is the Chitta, is taking the form of all kinds of things in the dream. Then that is their reality. That is their defined reality. But then when they wake up, they realize that it is just a dream, right? And when they are going through the world, doing all the different things in the world, then that is their objective reality. That is their objective reality. So when the magician does his thing, right, then everybody within that 100 yards, they become their objective, right? 100 yards of the magician, that becomes their objective reality for some time, as if when somebody is dreaming during sleep, right? So that is what this paragraph is actually talking about. It's that the magician is trying to create a different kind of reality for them, right? Which is a defined reality. Okay.
But anyway, we can also say this daydreaming. For example, someone has not closed his eyes, but someone has just gone into like, I'm seeing something, but whatever I'm seeing, that is not there, which is running in my mind. In my mind, I have something else which is imagining. So now it's like the reality is I'm in a different place, and my imagination I am in a different place, as you said about the Chandni Chowk and Prayag. So now, which one I take it as real? The one where I am, or the one what I am imagining to be?
Yeah, as long as you are in your imagination, whatever is there in the imagination, that is what you will think as real, because your mind is not connected with the indriyas, right? Let's say you're in place, you're in Prayag, but your mind is not connected with the indriyas, right? So even though your eyes are open, but the visual information is not going to your chitta. Therefore, whatever you're imagining, that is what appears real to you in that minute when you're daydreaming, even keeping your eyes open. So your external, yeah.
Yes, please.
No. So because even even though the eyes are open, but the mind is not connected. When the mind is not connected with the indriyas, then what is outside of you, you're not going to get the perception of that. So whatever you're imagining in your mind, you're getting perception only of that. So that appears real to you as long as you're in the spell of imagination. Whatever is there in your imagination, that's what appears real to you. That is your defined reality. Just like how the magician has created this defined reality, that will be your defined reality. So whatever you're imagining, that appears real. So even if your friend passed before you, you will not have seen your friend.
Yes. So that's a defined reality. That means that is existing as long as I am imagining. The moment I stop that, then my reality changes and I am into a different world where my indriyas are working now to give the input. So out of the two, the one and can I say both were real at certain point in time? It is only the matter of time that I was in a different world and then I came to this world.
Yeah, both of them. See, the objects in your imagination were not real, right? So whatever you are imagining in your, even though you had the imagination, but the objects were not real in your imagination. Let's say you were imagining of some food, right? That is still an imagination. That food is still an imagination, but you imagine that food, that is real.
Okay. So the imagination only was real, but the things in the imagination was not real. Is that so?
Yes, the things in your imagination is not real. Let's say you are imagining that you are eating a fruit. Let's say you are imagining that you are eating a mango fruit. It is true that you are imagining a fruit.
Yes, but all those actions and everything was not real. What I was doing in my imagination.
Yeah. Everything is, those actions were all not real. Like you're putting the mango fruit in your mouth. All that is unreal. The mango fruit also is non-existent. Right? But it's the fact that you imagined. Let's say you imagined for 10 minutes. It's a fact that you imagined for 10 minutes. But the objects in the imagination, they're all unreal.
Magni, as you said, this people who get into this Kula Kundalini sadhana and all those, and they get some siddhis, but is it not that they did the sadhana to kind of let go of this egoistic things and to become pure to attain siddhi? You need certain purity to receive a siddhi, and after receiving the siddhi, how is it that you fall out of that purity of thoughts and get into the again this material name and fame things? So is there no protecting thing when you do the sadhana? After that you don't fall out of your place and get into the muddy world again?
Protection in the sense that if your bhakti bhava for Paramapurusha is very, very tivra, you have tivra bhakti, right? When you have tivra bhakti, then there is you will not fall from the path, right? But when your bhakti is not tivra, right? When your bhakti is not tivra, that is when you have a chance of falling off, right? So, right, by doing constant sadhana, and see, sometimes the people do sadhana not keeping Paramapurusha as the goal. They can do sadhana of even other things, right? They can do sadhana of prakriti, they can do sadhana of other things, and also and get siddhis. So then what happens is they get the siddhi and they become Brahmit. They feel that they are almighty because they have those powers. They feel that, oh, I got this power, now I am Bhagavan. They start thinking like that, right? They have the Aishwarya, Bhaga. Therefore they feel they are Bhagavan. Then ultimately they just lose the path. They lose the path and they just become so engrossed in their siddhis that they lose the path, and then eventually they fall from their path, right? Because ultimately reaching that Nirguna Brahma is the goal, and they never go into that goal. So those people are doing the Prakriti Siddhi, they never had that Nirguna Brahma as the goal, right? So they eventually, even if they get siddhis, they have fallen from the path. But if even a person who is ideating on the Brahma, Nirguna Brahma, let's say he gets the siddhis and he gets engrossed, right? Then there is every chance of falling. So there is nothing as a guarantee, but somebody who is steadfast, that love for Paramapurusha, the deep attraction for Paramapurusha is very, very strong. So such a person, the falling is not a chance. There is no chance of falling, because he is very clear from the beginning what his goal is. Only a person who is not very clear on what the goal is, those are the people who can get Brahmit.
Okay, so the sadhaka, even if he has gone out of this distractions what we see around the world, then also after attaining the siddhis, again there are chances of he is coming back to the same world with little more power to show and create again the magics and all those.
Yeah. That is why it is important to not give importance to the siddhis. Like for a true sadhaka, he is very clear on what the goal of life is, right? He is very clear that Paramapurusha is the goal of life, and he only ideates on Paramapurusha, and his attraction and bhakti for Paramapurusha is very, very deep. That's why this bhakti bhava is very important, right? Without bhakti bhava, you keep doing sadhana, then you will get Brahmit. But for a person who has this deep attraction towards that supreme entity, Such a person, that is overpowering. He has this ragatmika bhakti in return. So everything that he is doing as a yantra for Paramapurusha, as the hands and legs of Paramapurusha. For such a person, this is nothing. It's like a blade of grass. It's like a blade of grass. So he will not pay any attention to those siddhis. He will just be focusing on what he is supposed to do. So for such people, the falling from the path is not an option, or it never happens.
People who are into this bhakti bhava, they do not get siddhis, or they also do get siddhis, but they are not bothered about using them.
No, yeah, even who are in the bhakti bhava, they also will get siddhis, but they will give no attention to the siddhis.
Okay.
They will also get, as their mind expands, they will also get the siddhis, but they will give no attention to the siddhis. They will be engaging in their yogic life more and more, because they want to attain Paramapurusha and do Jagat Hit. That's all their goal is, right? They don't have any individual existence. Because what happens is, right, only a person, when he's using the siddhis, what does it mean? He wants to show I am great. That is why he's using the siddhis. Why is he using the siddhis? He wants to show others that I'm more powerful than you. That is why he's using the siddhis. So that means you're giving more room for ahankara, right? So then the whole goal of this yogic practice is to not give ahankara. So a person who understands that he has no room for his individual ahankara, then he will give no importance to siddhis. He will not even think of using the siddhis, or he will not even give any attention to the siddhis. He will keep proceeding in his life. Who realizes that he has the siddhis and he is attracted to use the siddhis, that means he is giving more room for his individual ahankara. He is building on his ego. So then that means he is fallen from the path. He can proceed further in the spiritual path.
Bhagini, there are some sadhakas who are using the siddhis without a name and fame, but for Jagat Hit. Now, we have read about a few of the sadhakas in the earlier, like the Saint Tipit, who kind of, but they do not go and publish it anywhere, and then do not display anything. They do it without anyone's knowledge, and they give the credit that it has happened as a will of God. But there is something that we know, that it is the sadhaka who has used the siddhi for the Jagat Hit. So is that wrong?
Yeah, so essentially, see, this whole Jagat is a Shristi of Paramapurusha. He knows what should be done and what should not be done. Who are we to interfere in that law of Paramapurusha, to say I will go and do Jagat Hit by using the siddhi? I have to do the Jagat Hit with whatever is given to me, not using the siddhi. So a true spiritual sadhaka will never use the siddhi, because he knows his whole Jagat is running according to the design of Paramapurusha. So who am I to use as extra power? Interfering with the Srishti, I'm interfering with the laws of Prakriti, which I don't have any right to. Right? So let's say that I'm using my siddhi to split the river into two, right? And I'm just trying to help a person to cross the river, right? For whatever reason, I don't have that power to do that. Maybe that person was supposed to be drowned in that river according to his karma. So I'm interfering with the karma, the laws of karma, right? So no individual has a right to interfere with the laws of karma by using siddhis. So this whole Jagat is happening according to the laws of karma, according to the design of Paramapurusha. So I cannot interfere with that by using the siddhis. So whether you're using the siddhis for Jagat Hit or not is a different matter, but we don't have right to interfere with the design of Paramapurusha. So essentially what this means is that we cannot use the siddhis even for doing Jagat Hit. We should not use the siddhis at all, period. We should not give any importance to siddhis. The moment you use the siddhis, that means you are giving importance to your ahankara. That's all it means. So even if it is for Jagat Hit, we cannot use siddhis. A true sadhaka will not use the siddhis, because it's essentially challenging Paramapurusha's design.
Okay. And Bhagini, what do you say about the Tanmatra and the Indriyas? Are the same?
Tanmatras and the Indriyas? No, Tanmatras and Indriyas are not the same. Indriyas is the Indriyas, we have these Indriyas, right? Chakshur Indriya, Granendriya, the senses which get this particular guna, right? But this Tanmatra,
the 5 Jnanendriya and the 5 Karmendriya.
5 Karmendriya, yes. So the
And
tanmatras, yeah, go ahead.
yes, please.
Yeah, so the tanmatras, so all these objects, right, everything in this universe has a gati, everything has a movement, everything is spandanatmaka, everything has a wave, right? So the objects of this world also they have waves which are emanating from them. They also have gatihi and they have wave. Everything is spandanatmakam, they have a wave. So when I see a book, so what happens, there is a wave which is a small microscopic fraction of a wave in the object, and that wave is captured. That wave is the tanmatra, right? That is the tanmatra, and that is captured by the eyes, right? That's captured by the eyes. That wave is captured by the eyes, and that microscopic fraction of a wave is transmitted to the chitta, and then chitta takes the shape of that particular object, right? So every object which is made of panchabhutas, right? They all have tanmatras. All tanmatras. We say that akasha tanmatra, shabda and sparsha tanmatra. Agni has 3 tanmatra. It also has rupa tanmatra, and jala has also the rasa tanmatra, and the prithvi has the gandha tanmatra, right? So compared to akasha, the vayu is more crude, right? It's more crude compared to vayu. Agni is more crude compared to agni. Jala is more crude compared to jala. The kshiti tattva is more crude because it has more tanmatras. So anything which has tanmatras, we get a perception of that, right? So we can easily perceive the kshiti tattva, we can easily perceive the jala tattva, we can easily perceive the agni tattva, but we cannot perceive the vayu tattva, we cannot perceive the akasha tattva, but we can, in the sense, we cannot see it, but we can experience the touch, we can hear the sound. So with using those gunas, we can actually do the anumana that there is this akasha tattva, we can do the anumana that there is vayu tattva. So anything which has a tanmatras, we can perceive those, but anything which doesn't have the tanmatras, Paramapurusha doesn't have the tanmatras, he's very, very subtle, we cannot perceive Paramapurusha through our indriyas, through our senses. Is that what your question was?
So tanmatras are those vibrations.
Yes,
that we
vibration.
can feel or we can see and all those. And indriyas are something which is using those tanmatras to form the image or to get into the information to chitta.
Yeah.
Okay.
Indriyas capture those tanmatras, those vibration waves, and send it.
Tanmatras are more subtle than the indriyas.
Tanmatras are more subtle than the indriyas. Why would you say that?
Because the indriyas are at least they are grasping some information about the tanmatras, but we just cannot straight away see a tanmatra, because it is something that we experience, and it is as you said, the more and more tanmatras only makes it gross, otherwise it is only in the subtle form. The tanmatras are very much in the subtle form, but as you said about the nirguna brahma, which doesn't have any tanmatras, so definitely we are not able to perceive.
Yeah, but the indriyas you're trying to say that tanmatras are more subtle than the indriyas?
Yes. Is it so?
No, indriyas are also subtle, we cannot see the indriyas. We cannot see that all these doesn't mean just the eyes, the physical eyes.
Okay, it's the power of seeing.
Yeah, it's the power of seeing.
Okay. So when the eyes are working, it means that they are capturing the tanmatras and they are projecting it on our chitta.
Exactly.
Okay. So the tanmatras are different and indriyas are different. Indriyas are using the tanmatras. They are not one and the same. So tanmatra, I can say it is the material that is being used by the indriyas to project something on the chitta. Is it so?
it's not a material, it is like a spandan or a wave which is getting captured. So if you want to call the wave as a material, yeah.
Okay, so it is those vibrations, if I call it.
It's vibrations. Yeah.
Okay, and each of the object, they have those vibrations or the tanmatras. Anything and everything in this world, they have the tanmatras.
Yeah, this whole world is panchabhutatmakam, right? Made of panchabhutas. Yes. Therefore everything has the tanmatras. That is why we are able to see all of it, experience all of it.
Okay, so this panchabhuta is having this tanmatras based on their the number of tanmatras. Then the panchabhutas grossification is happening. Okay.
What do you mean by grossification? You mean crudification?
Means crudification.
Yeah, each of the bhuta is more cruder than the other. Like for instance, in that order, akashat vayu, vayu agnihi, agnehe apyah prithvi.
So the more and more tanmatras they get, the more and more cruder they get.
Yes, Kshiti Tattva is the crudest.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else, Bhagini?
I took you out of this this topic, and we went to tanmatra and indriya.
No worries. Yeah, you can always ask. If I know, I will answer. If not, I will find out and let you know.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bhagini. Namaskaraha. We'll end the session over here. Dhanyavadah.